Welcome to Modern Bok. Today is Modern Bok News. So we're covering some of the local news in South Africa and the rugby news especially, and how it affects going forward and how we should interpret some of the news. Unfortunately, sometimes people just read headlines and we'd like to just get some breakdown into the details. So just before I start, please subscribe and like this video if you want things more, and please leave extra things you want to cover in the comments so I can go through it for you. Cool. Okay, let's begin. So first things first, let's talk about some of the overseas players who definitely still show interest in coming back and performing, which is stunning news for South Africa. We've got to understand that unfortunately we have a major problem with players leaving the country, but the power of wanting to play for the Springboks is still strong, and that is just what we need as South Africans. So first off, Cheslin Kolbe also announced today that he's still very interested, and he's currently having a great run in the top 14 at the moment, and the French media are loving what he's putting out there. And I've been watching some of his games, following some of his games over the last year, and I agree, he's a stunning find and has an amazing X factor, and that's what really sets him apart. Unfortunately, I think he's got a bit of a uphill battle to enter the Bok team, but nothing that I think he as a talented player couldn't do. Currently, if I rank them, we've got Whiteley at the moment, with Warwick Galant as being our current 1 and 2 on the number 15 position, with him trying to compete in the back. We've actually got a couple other great fullbacks also here in the country. So at least we know that our pool is not low on that front. But Cheslin has got probably, I think, Warwick Galant beat on X factor and pace, although Galant has got size and defensive ability on his side. Whiteley on the other hand has got X factor in spades, but in this last week's game his defensive frailties were exposed, and even similarly in the English test. So we need to question that, and whether those two maybe just need to be swapped around. So that's going to be interesting to see, and good to see players wanting to come back from overseas. Other players that obviously have also been hinting at coming back is Dwayne Vermeulen. He's been pushed and is touted. It sounds like he's either going to be joining the Western Province or the Blue Bulls next year, which will be exciting to see where he goes. Me, as a Blue Bulls fan, would like him to come here. The guy is a beast, but we'll see. Talking about Dwayne Vermeulen, there's a lot of news and stories about Rassie Erasmus asking for him to come back during the Rugby Championship, even though that was agreed that would not be happening. But let's face it, as South Africans, that would be amazing news. The guy is a beast, and if I were Warren Whiteley, I'd be worried. He's going to have a hard time playing himself into that World Cup position next year with Dwayne playing the way that he's done, and playing even overseas the way he is. So Whiteley needs to worry about that and how he can keep that position, especially considering that it seems like Rassie feels that he has to be the guy playing for him. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, on the other hand, we've got the fact that currently Rassie sits at 50%. So yes, he was at 50% starting in the Rugby Championship, so it's not real news, but obviously the 2 tests he lost were inconsequential, and people obviously gave him a break on that. But now we've got a question, 0 to 0. What's wrong in the Rassie regime? And I don't know if there's anything wrong yet with the coaching. It's too early. I mean, let's face it, the Lions took north of 2.5 years to really build the playing style that they wanted into that team. So we do have to give some time, but unfortunately we don't have 2.5 years. We have north of 12 months or 18 months between 8 and 12 months for the World Cup. So it's going to be a tight one. And the problem is the SA public already is in a real downside when it comes to SA rugby. So he needs to find more wins than losses. Unfortunately for him, he's got some of the biggest hurdles in the game coming up soon, with the Wallaby game in next week, and following that the All Blacks overseas, which is never an easy endeavour, let's face it. So we'll see how that goes, but unfortunately at this point Rassie Erasmus really needs to find a way to have the public and his team behind him, because at the moment it's just not there. And I feel that it's not completely fair to have the pressure on him like that, although we have the same pressure on Alistair Coetzee, and unfortunately everybody must be gauged with the same graph. So we'll see how it goes. It's going to be a tough couple of games for him, and if he doesn't perform much better over the Rugby Championship and the tour, we might even have a new coach for next year by the sound of things, which is going to be even worse. Let's face it. I mean, we can't keep on swapping it. We're going to start treating coaches like we treat them in Bafana. That's not helpful to anybody. Consistency sometimes is key here. Yeah, and then, so, next thing, one of the next big stories obviously being that the Springboks now the SA Rugby announced its income and loss for last year, which effectively income was zero. They had a net loss of 33 million. So I know that the couple of the newspaper headlines and articles have been stating 62 million. It's a pretty headline, but it is wrong. It's actually 33 million. 62 million is for SA Rugby and the subsidiaries, which include a lot of charities and a lot of local rugby initiatives, which by design lose money. So unfortunately, it's a nice number to throw around, but unfortunately that's just not how it works. There are many programs run across the country in rural communities and even in urban communities to bring rugby to the youth, and they need to be supported, and we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to now seeing this huge number at 62 million. Fine, 33 million is not much less, but it is half the amount, so understand that. And there are a couple of factors to that. I think SA Rugby has nothing to worry about financially, as the two major impacts, as you can see from the news reports and some of my digging, is the bid for the 2023 World Cup, which, let's face it, as all South Africans, we believe we were robbed on that, but we will not go into that too much in detail. And the other side being the setup and promotion of the Pro 14 for the Cheetahs and the Sunwolves. What am I saying? The Southern Kings. So the Cheetahs have at least had, in my opinion, a good start to the Pro 14, a massively different tournament and a hugely grueling tournament, have really shown some skill and talent in that. And that picks up this weekend with the Cheetahs and the Southern Kings playing this weekend. And South Africa really needs to support them in that endeavour, as I feel it's a great platform for us to advertise our players, because unfortunately we have to understand that people, just like anybody else, have to play for money. If they're playing locally or abroad, it doesn't matter as long as they're playing good quality rugby and building the local brand. And the thing is here, we can't embarrass ourselves overseas. We are one of the Southern powers, and we need to showcase that in the Pro 14. The Cheetahs have done a good job of that. The Kings less so, and especially less so. I mean, I think Zebra is the only team they beat in the Pro 14 last year, and that is embarrassing. So I really feel one of the biggest things that needs to happen in this next Pro 14 is that the Southern Kings need to improve their performance. They need to showcase why they're there, why they have the value there. They have some of the best player feed in the country, and the Pro 14 does give them a decent bank to be able to now continue to keep the players locally instead of them filtering into other clubs in the country. But they are not showcasing quality rugby. There doesn't seem to be a family there. So I think that takes time to build, and we'll hold thumbs for them. But at the moment, they're embarrassing South Africa, so let's hold thumbs that they pick that up. So I'm going to cover some of the players that I feel have a hard time at the moment. They're going to really have to work hard to actually keep their positions this week and going forward in the tournament. So first off, I've got Pollard. Handre Pollard has got a mountain to climb when it comes to his current kicking ability. I feel his play and his positional play in last week's game was up to par, but up to par is not good enough in this tournament, so we do need to question whether Willems is not a better option in that position, starting at least, considering that we've currently had a hard time in the first halves of all of our games. We need to come up with a bang, and worst case, a stable player like Pollard would be good to close off a game later in the game. So that is something I feel he's going to have is going to be a tight one, and we'll see who the selection is going to be. Next, Warren Whiteley. As I said in my video previously, Warren Whiteley is going to is having a hard time at the moment, and he didn't do himself any favours in this last game. Dwayne Vermeulen has already been contacted by Rassie Erasmus to bring him back into the Rugby Championship. Let's see if they allow it. And going forward, I mean, Warren Whiteley was touted as being the eighth man for the World Cup, and at the moment that does not look like that. So we're going to have to see if he can change his stripes and bring up a powerful performance and a dominating performance in that number 8 jersey. So we'll see what happens there. Next up, Lukhanyo Am. So Lukhanyo Am, although having some great moments and especially pulling through there in the first game, second game I felt he was weak and defensively lacked. He did not cover well when needed, and often forced Willie and even Adriansa to pull in to actually help him defend there. And he had no real X factor on that outside position, Willie having to give most of the ball for tries to Mapu, and even DINT. And even in the first game, similar happened. We have to look at that. So if I look at it, currently there's a couple of great options with Mapu rather bringing into the centre. He had some great feet and X factor in the last game, and also looking at bringing Jesse Creel from the Bulls, currently playing in Currie Cup, over back. I feel that they have both shown good. Creel scored 2 tries in the Currie Cup, and even though it was an stunning performance by the Bulls, he at least held his own and is keeping his hand up for the Boks jersey. Adrianse, on the other hand, Esterhuizen, on the other hand, had an okay game, but again, battering ram. That's all he's been doing for the last 4 games. In the first Wales test, he was a battering ram that worked well there. He was an okay battering ram in the English game, in the last English game, and a meh battering ram in the last in the Argentina game. He was pretty decent the week before, but I feel the whole team as a whole played better then. So it's unfortunately not sure where the actual difference is. But Adrianse really didn't impress anybody and often lost the ball in that position. So I feel that is going to be we need somebody who's a stronger runner, but not as a battering ram, rather as a running off the hand, running at the line, but just off the side, not trying to run through the players. There are bigger players coming up, and he's not going to get it right there. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, so those are some of the players I feel really have a hard time have really got to work hard to actually keep their positions. We'll see how it goes, and yeah. So I will be bringing out a new video next week to cover the Australia game. Please look for that and ring the bell on and subscribe so that you can get notified when that happens. And please leave a comment if there's anything else you'd like me to cover in SA Rugby News. I'll cover anything, Curry Cup, all of it. Thanks and enjoy your day.